Uh, I'm here with Chuck Van Gilder, and Charles is your name, but you go by Chuck, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, and we're getting ready for a presentation to the 8th Air Force. So we're going to do kind of a talking go through of the photographs, and this will help me keep track of the order and everything. So why don't you just go ahead and
You read this?
Yeah.
I was born and graduated from high school in Cannon Falls, Minnesota. And high school, yeah, about 40 miles south of Twin Cities. Graduated May 30th of 42. New York, a school, NYA school at Shakopee, the sheet metal school there. And on the 7th of August of 42, date of hire, Northwest Airlines military modernization down project in St. Paul. And then September 10th, I went to the Northern Division, about north of Edmonton, Canada. And then stationed at Watson Lake, Yukon. March 15th, departed Watson Lake, Yukon for back home, and the 18th arrived home, Twin City area. Worked 823 weeks in Minneapolis and NWA, and then April 13th entered the Navy boot camp at Farragut, Idaho. And September 19th, departed the USA aboard the USS Swanee to Gilbert Islands, first of 9 battles engaged in the South Pacific. October 24th, 44, the Second Battle of the Philippines, took 2 kamikazes, bomb and a torpedo before out of commission, listing about 20 degrees. And then March 1st of 45, I left Marcus Islands to invade Okinawa. August 1445, Buckner Bay, Okinawa, who war was called over, continued on to Nagasaki, Japan. And while we was in Buckner Bay, we were sitting there playing cards when there was an awful explosion going on. Looked up and here a guy was running around the flight deck with a revolver, shooting and guns going off, celebrating the end of the war there. And we went on to Nagasaki, Japan, Wakatan, Tokyo, Log Beach, California. Long Beach, California. 11/24/45, discharged from service. In February 46, attended school at St. Cloud Airport, Vans Air Service. October 46, graduated A&P license. November 46, attended school in McDonnell Airline Reservation School in Kansas City. February 47, graduated from there. February 47, employment with American Airlines. And early summer, went back to Minnesota. October 20th, 47, returned to NWA, so as an A&P licensed mechanic. February 25th, joined the U.S. Air Force Reserve and as a sergeant and as a mechanic. In the 9 of 56, jet aircraft school, Shepherd Air Force Base, with Wichita Falls, Texas. And then when I first joined there, we had C-46s with the FA fighters. In November of '57, at North Station, seen Sputnik, the Russian
Sure.
dog down there in Dakota, or San Diego. And then we went in '58, or C-119s went to Bacala, Indiana, where we replaced second place with all the airdrop units competing, and we got second place there. And that was a little exciting there, the fact that we were supposed to be done, not fly on the last Friday we were there. So we had a big party Thursday night, and everybody was well under the weather by then. And the commander of the Continental Air Force came in, see how we were doing. He walks in the ready room, and the keel's over. And then we went out on the flight there, and there was a Jeep on the IP, a drop zone, and I had a truck on one of the airplanes and the personnel on the other. He was riding along on the #1 plane that I was on in the jump seat, and when we dropped the truck, it landed right on top of the Jeep, and we went whoopee in the cockpit, you know, man. Well, it landed, he said didn't have to ruin that Jeep that way. And the pilot pulls out a whiskey bottle, takes a drink, passes it to the co-pilot, and I took a drink, and they never gave a drink. Well, the commander was all upset. He says, drinking while you're flying, he conversates the bottle, and it's only tea we have in that whiskey bottle. So, and then, May of '60, I joined the 133rd 109th Air National Guard, flying engineer on C-97s, and then flew routes from Paris across to France to Seoul, Korea with troops, and then in January or February, March, returned, March of '63, returned to the 934, completed many missions, and one we had down in Charleston, Carolina, all the enlisted guys and talked to girls in the town to come out there and have a half a script show. And when the operations officer come in and saw it, he broke the party up. And then returned to 934. And that was part of the things that happened. Oh, and in '65, we had our summer camp at Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska. We airdropped stuff to the troops out near the Bering Sea. While I was up there, I had my rifle with me, and I shot 3 caribou and put them on the airplane. And I caught a pup up there, a husky, and several others got dogs. And we had some had some frozen salmon. We started out from Eielson for one that's 6,000 feet, and the controller says, "Can't give you that." Well, we have to have it. Why is that? Well, it says we go any higher, the dogs won't be able to breathe well. If we go any lower, the meat will fall off. So he asked the controller again. The controller come back and says 6,000 feet approved into Washington State, or where we land. So then late '60s, I went to survival school, the Air Force. You really learn a lot how to survive.
That's a tough course, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was 3 of them, one down there and then one in Panama and one in Alaska.
Mhm.
Where the warmers are supposed to be is 45 below. And you survive for 5 days. And so, one down in Panama with a C-130 in '73 landed there, and my nephew was major there, and he knew I was coming, so he drives out with his car that he has, and driver and aide. When he got there, but he drove out where the airplane was, and the aide picked up my bags, and I finished putting 130 to bed, and then I picked up aides, and they escorted me over to his car, and they drove off and left all the rest to cruise. And then first flight engineer to be certified on the C-130s in January 1970, and ship number 477 left to Minneapolis, first reserve in the Air Force to get C-130s. We checked out as a flight engineer, phase 1, and in February got checked out of phase 2, and ARC personnel couldn't be assigned flight engineer yet. In a reserve, they could do that. I was given a short period of time as an instructor engineer on that. And so, I don't know, I go back to the World War II there when we had the kamikaze. Well, I was standing on the flight deck, and while we were landing, as the pictures have shown, and I walked across and jumped in the catwalk. Just as I jumped in the catwalk, he goes through the flight deck. Something shears off, decapitates the guy that's standing there putting ammo into the gun, 20 millimeters, and a couple, 3 or 4 millimeter shots along my left side and the side of the ship. I was between the 2 of them. And then I walked aft on the catwalk on down, got below, and here the torpedo was that the colored boys that would wait on the table, dining room. All there was, the ones on top was mostly just bones, but there's whole bodies below it. And around the big hole in the hangar deck, guy was sitting on the other side there, went over there. He had a chunk of metal in the top of his head, and we can't give him morphine for a head wound, so helped carry him, got some help carry him down to sick bay, and probably this doctor was telling him about part of it down there. And I got one of the sick ones was wanting a drink of water. I gave him the water, and the water ran right out their side.
Oh boy, he punctured his intestines.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's other things I did around there. Come back up on top side after that second kamikaze we took. I was down. My turn to go eat. My plane was out on a mission, and I heard a tremendous noise, explosion, and I think the guys down there, when they moved, would put a jackrabbit in slow motion. They moved so fast.
They got out of there as fast as they could move. Yeah.
Adrenaline took over real quick. And so we got up there and up on top side, and as the picture shows, all we see is fire and smoke. We have to started to go over the side and got out towards aft a little. It wasn't so bad, so stayed on the ship and helped fight the fire. The way we fought it was one guy with a water hose, and then another one behind him to keep the guy that's close to the fire wet down to get it put out there. And so, and then there's pictures there of our forward elevator that was busted, and that was part of the launching site that we had there. And the ammo, not bins, storage areas of ammo. Every once in a while, one of them would go off. Ammo would go and flying all over the place. And when the thing was all over with, I took my helmet off, and I had 2 holes in one side and one on the other with a hunk of metal in the top of the helmet, and I got a piece of metal in it.
Wow, so you almost got killed.
Yeah,
with the shrapnel.
yeah.
If the helmet hadn't saved you, you'd have a piece of metal in your head, probably.
Yeah, well, like that other guy that did have it sitting down there. So finally got the fire put out, and then and nursed it back to Ulysses Island. And he got more help, and then we took him back to Bremerton, Washington State there for repairs. And we were back out there by the middle of January of '45, and we went on to Okinawa, and down to Borneo, and then up to north to I can see the name of that big island again.
Was it near Okinawa, or?
Yeah, in Okinawa, that's when I'm thinking of. We're coming up there. Our job was to keep, there's 3 islands south of Okinawa that had Japanese airplanes. They were coming up, interfering with our landing in Okinawa. Our job was to keep those airplanes from coming up there. On the same token, from the southern end of Okinawa, we were being fired at, and that little issue under fire for 85 days.
Could they fire from the shore?
Yeah, well, we were too close to that, but we had to be in the right position because they were coming up from these islands up to Okinawa. We had to be in that route area to shoot them down or stop them down there. Yet we was close enough to Okinawa to getting ground fire there, but we didn't get hit seriously. We got a few bullets over the wall. Yeah. And earlier we were playing when things was idle. Why we were sitting there playing pinochle. Heard this rattling noise. I opened the door and I was looking right in the mouth of a Jap plane coming in. All the bullets was hitting the side of the ship, and just below my feet or on the side.
Wow, that's close.
Yeah.
That's too close.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Was that a kamikaze, or he's just firing on the ship?
Well, he was firing on the ship because he was at water level. He wasn't coming down. He was there, and as soon as he turned aft, there were quad 40 millimeters. The guns knocked him down, took him prisoner. Of course, he was, our people was ordered not to kill him, hang on to him as a POW. How they actually did it, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But,
so did they pick him up out of the water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Now, your job on the Swanee, you were a crew captain, or what do you call it?
Plane captain, they call it. Same as a crew chief. That's the word is more familiar with people. And we had 2 airplanes set on the catapult all the time with the pilots in them and everything. And when they'd sound flight quarters, he'd fire the engine to start it. As soon as the catapult operator heard the engine fire, he'd fire the catapult. and within say of my airplane, he told me that he'd be airborne before, well, the oil pressure is just coming up.
Wow,
that's how fast he was here.
Yeah.
And we kept it up and had somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 sorties through the time out there.
You got good at getting the planes up.
Yeah. Well, us as plane captains would be sitting on the wing talking to the pilot there. When he hit flight quarters, we had to slide down off the wing and lay down flat because the tail was coming right over us.
Yeah.
And for that many times, and nobody got hurt with that tail.
Did they have what kind of catapult did they have in those days?
Air pressure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the kind of plane you were playing?
F6, FF6.
Okay, and that's the Hellcat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you supervise the maintenance of it, or?
No, well, no, not the maintenance. They had other personnel, but this is just to help the pilot make sure he's all buckled in right, and see that we had the proper fuel. And then every half hour and refuel them or so, and then every hour would change pilots too. And you had to make sure that the flight quarters wouldn't be coming right then.
Yeah. So your job as plane captain, you're actually right up there with the pilot, and you're making sure everything's gonna work right with him and with the plane, and it has nothing.
And then when they sound flight quarters, it sounds 3 times. It wasn't but a few, less than a few minutes, and we'd have 3 of them airborne.
Mm-hmm. And you had to jump off of the wing and get on the ground so you didn't get hit by the plane being catapulted.
Yeah,
wow.
Well, we had that time down very good. Nobody that I know got hurt with it. They just had to do it all right the first time. And we had pictures of the kamikaze coming down there, and then we got hit with a second one. And so,
was the second one the following day?
Yeah, the next day at noon.
Wow.
And I was down in Mess Hall eating, and then I got that tremendous noise that shook the ship. He hit with his bomb, plus landing right in our airplanes, and I had reasonably empty tanks. The whole works were boom. So maybe that's why I got PTSD.
Well, did the planes that were up, did they come in again, or did they go somewhere else?
Yeah. Well, there was 4 carriers that worked together, and so they had to keep it going. It's rotating over the target area and refuel them and send them out again, because the 3 other carriers could not take on what's airborne.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to take turns going around until they lost enough of them where something else happened. But anyway, so the plane couldn't make it back, but then we finally get them all on the deck.
Yeah. Now did oh, go ahead.
There you go.
Did the kamikaze come off of the Philippines on the land, or was it?
Yeah,
okay.
As far as we could determine, they were coming off land, and they follow our planes back in the clouds behind us. We had IFF on them, a little thing that I remember working on the CIC, Combat Intelligence Corps area, and every 7 or 10 hours had to change that because planes couldn't stay, the fighters couldn't stay airborne very long.
Yeah.
So if that plane landed someplace and the Japanese guy takes it and comes back, well, he won't identify as a friendly, he'll be an enemy. We'll shoot our own plane up. The plane itself don't know it's Japanese.
Now IFF, that's friend or foe identification?
Yeah.
Okay. And then was this a radio signal? Or?
Yeah, it was a signal.
Yeah.
It was running between the airplane and the ship, so you could tell when which type it was. here.
Now, were you in the middle of the Battle of Samar with the Japanese then, or was this at a different time? In other
Well,
words,
this is all the Battle of
Lady Gulf.
Lady Gulf.
So that was all going on while this kamikaze attack happened?
Yeah, that's all part of the
Okay.
issue. I mean, others took too, a few hits and misses, and we could see some of the planes that coming in to make a dive on one of the other carriers, and bingo, he missed him, went in the water. And we had one that missed off on the port side there. And so they were going at us, the carriers that was moving in. And then that's the next, when MacArthur said I'd return, and he came in on Lady Island there, and we went over there in '94 for our 50th anniversary, and went out where we'd gotten hit at the GPS position, and I don't know where the picture is, but it shows Tex Gardner, who was in charge of the group on reunion. He had a bottle of whiskey, and he dropped that to the guys down there 50 years later. And he was telling about where he got the bottle of whiskey. Well, every time they'd shoot an airplane down in actual battle, they'd draw it and pull out the bottle of whiskey and have a drink and all. Oh, when we got hit, he went and swept one of the bottles out of the refrigerator or whatever it was, and kept it for 50 years, and then you...
Really? Wow. That's great. Hang on just a minute. I'm gonna, for technical reasons, I'm gonna... Let's see, so one question, this is just for my own curiosity, is the Swanee, was that named after a person or a river?
No, a river.
The Swanee, well, there's a song about the way down on the Swanee River. Is it the same river we're talking about?
It would spell differently.
Okay, but that's the reference to the name. And then you were in this battle. The Battle of Leyte Gulf was the largest naval battle in human history. Yeah. Did you ever get fired on by battleships or cruisers or any of that stuff?
No, not from there. It was more of a ground island fire we'd get, because we're getting as close as we can, and then bomb the islands so that the troops, Marines and Army guys had it a little softer. We started with Gilbert Islands, and we taught Kwajalein and Marshall Island, Guam, and Lucy, and some others there. I got a whole map showing our whole trip.
Oh, it shows all the islands there.
Yeah, all the islands. Yeah. And from every day I'd mark it down.
Really? So every day you had oh, that map's going to be very useful.
Yeah, because most of it was from everything west of Hawaii. We're in general quarters all the time, but in the flight quarters is when we get in close to the islands to be able to send off our fighters to soften up the beaches and to so that then we'd get their small fire, but that didn't, peanuts to us. I mean, we get hit, hit the ship, and wouldn't hit anybody. So, and one Shane was telling about my father going to one island, which was slowly, heavily occupied, and they kept having so much ammo in there. The Japs did, but they had big supply of it, and they kept shooting all the time. Well, he said he saw this door on the side of the hill there, and so he had a torpedo on, so he went along and dropped that torpedo at water level right for that door. And when that torpedo hit that door, that was an ammo dump there, and the whole cotton picking works blew up, And when he went unconscious, and he found himself at 20,000 feet when he woke up. So, and he was telling about it when he come back, but and not one pilot was old enough to vote.
Hmm.
They're all in their high teens.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I was just turned 21 when we got hit with the kamikazes, and I think the oldest one was 23, and plus the high price crew captain and the executive. It was all
Young people. Yeah.
All young people. Yeah.
Did the Sewanee have other planes other than the Hellcat? Like, did it have Wildcats or
No.
torpedo planes or?
We had torpedo, Avenger torpedo bombers, and they had a 3 crew man, and fighter had 1, and this one fighter would take them in and land them. We had to do everything precisely because they'd hardly have enough fuel to make a turn around and come back. And come and land there, tail hook, and stretch out, and then they'd roll backwards and hook the hook, and then he'd throttle forward a little bit to go past the barrier. Bingo, it wouldn't go because he ran out of fuel.
Wow, that's close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so as soon as we know he was not moving, the ground crew that handles them, they push the plane up to the bow past the barriers. And so, no, because the next one's already under downward, the last leg coming into land.
Yeah.
So we have to get off the flight deck right away, or never know what's going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did. I walked across there after landing one. I jumped the catwalk ring, and the kamikaze goes through the
Wow.
deck.
So during recovery, you were kind of off to the side near the
We
catwalk.
had to be down in the catwalk sitting on the side because you didn't know when things were going to actuate. And if there's any question, they'll have the full the flight deck already, just anything that happened. This one guy come in all shut up, he could only, with full power, could get to the ship to land. As soon as he let back, he'd start down, and he couldn't come to gain altitude. And so he come in, and the LSO gave him the signal to drop the gear. Only the left gear would drop, no right gear. Well, he had no place to go but hit the deck. And so when he hit the deck, he had full power on. The feller hit the deck, bingo, the engine came right off the airplane, rolled across, went down the water on the outside, and with no right gear, it hit the deck and tore the wing off that side. And when he come to a screeching halt, he had the left wing and the tail.
Wow, and he lived, and he was
Oh,
okay.
yeah. We grabbed that thing to throw it over the side because the next one's on the downwind leg for landing.
Yeah.
They got to get rid of him. He barely, we quickly got him out of there just in time as the plane was thrown over the side and get down the cap. Bingo, comes the next one.
Wow. Well, you guys had to be efficient in your.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We picked up, we started it in school down in Astoria, Oregon, then went to Southern California to it set up a distance for them to land airplanes and be practiced taking off to get everything as according we could, and then up to Long Beach, California, and then board the ship there in October of 43. Went to Gilbert Island. Everything. And I have a T-shirt that shows U.S. Swanee and all the battles on the backside.
Really?
11 combat missions.
Wow. Now, let's see, Okinawa, that was almost 3 months long, wasn't it? With the.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep this running. So The idea was you were kind of like the picket ship. You kept the Japanese from coming in on our task force.
Well,
And this was almost 3 months long. You were doing this duty, or
no, 25 months.
no? I mean in Okinawa.
Oh yeah, Okinawa was 3 months long.
Yeah. Well, I know that campaign was quite long, and it was maybe one of the bloodiest battles of the war.
Yeah. Well, that's where where they raised the flag on Iwo Jima, and so that was on the south end of the island where Iwo Jima was, the mountain that they had.
Yeah.
And,
Were you at Iwo Jima?
yeah. Well, I don't. We had it in sight because we were bombing on it, but other than that, it was on the ship all the time. And when we did land at the islands where they'd give us a break for the day, we could go ashore. And I found some pictures of the natives that came to meet us more or less, and getting off this landing ship. The guy was carrying a case of beer and he tripped. And the guy says, "Save the beer." After we got on there, these natives showed up, and all the women have nothing on but their half.
Yeah.
They were all there arrested.
This is real native Pacific Islands. Do you remember the island's name, where that was?
No, right offhand.
Yeah, it's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the big one was Guadalcanal, New Guinea, and two New Hebrides, and go in there, and so the next time I landed there, they issued T-shirts to the little women with bare breasts, and when they came back the next day, here they cut holes out, the dresses so thick. You know, their culture is different than ours.
Yeah.
And I see no big difference for that matter.
Yeah. Probably the weather is warm down there.
Yeah, oh yeah. But I mean, for the exposure, well, it's all part of the skin of the body. I mean, what difference is it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I see it.
Now, let me make sure I got the sequence. So there's the Suwannee was a kamikaze attack, and that was while you were, where was that outside of, what was that, near?
Suwannee got attacked.
Philippines at Leyte, where the landings were. Were you in the ship before that? Were you like at Guadalcanal or any of those earlier?
Just before, right after Guadalcanal. They were just ahead of, there was in, earlier in 43, I think, Guadalcanal, and I come on board it. And this ship had been over in Africa campaigns, in Timor in the Pacific, and they, over in Africa was the only aircraft carrier they know of that sunk a submarine.
Really? How did they do that?
I don't know how they did it.
It was before you got on board.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And then, see, the order was Gilbert Island and south of the equator stuff. And where's the map?
Oh yeah, here's some pictures of the attack on the kamikaze attack. Yeah.
There's a whole book on the log of the Suwannee.
Oh, this is the war log of the Suwannee.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has got a map. Is this what you're looking for?
Oh, yeah.
Here, maybe you know what. Oh, yeah, that's quite nice. That shows everything.
Hawaii here. And all these blue lines, which are here, Fiji.
Yeah.
And,
Now, did you draw the colored markings and all this on here?
yeah, I drew this with that tree. Here's the Gilbert Island.
So you came on in the Gilberts, that was when you arrived on the ship?
First, yeah, from there. Here was their first run.
Well, let me back up. So you got on the ship in what, San Francisco?
No, in Long Beach, California.
Long Beach, okay. So you came with the ship to the Gilberts, okay.
Yeah, I was it was from there, from Long Island, where the board the ship went to the Gilbert Islands here. And,
Tara was part of the Gilbert Islands,
Yeah.
yeah.
there it is. And then we went back home to the States long enough they gotten some more supplies for some reason. Anyway, we come back out and we hit all these islands. We crossed here. And here's Edmund, the island down here, Manus. And
The Caroline Islands, and that's just north of New Ireland in
Yeah.
Papua New Guinea.
You're down in the Solomon Islands we got in. Then the red one, that is the trip after we got bombed here in Haiti. We went back and got repaired, and then we come, the red line all coming back is the one that we went up here to Okinawa, and we came down here back to Lady, and for a second time, and went down here to Borneo, and then back up again to Okinawa, and then we went into Nagasaki here.
Now, you told me, I think September 19th was when you were at Nagasaki, and talk a little bit about that. You were trying to pick up POWs, is that what you're...
Well, what we did, they called the people that were working on airplanes and stuff, were called Airedales. They had nothing for us to do now that the war is down, but we need to, excuse me, because of this cancer. So, but anyway, we left there and got a truck with a V-plow on it to go through the debris to find, go back in the hills looking for POWs. And this one big block of cement, couldn't figure out what it was and where the road was or anything. Here's finally uncovered railroad track there, and we figured it was the railroad station. And all it was cement floor and the railroad track. Well, we finally headed out and got into the hills, got the POWs, and while we was there, we were curious. We got off the trucks and walked around a little bit. And they got a couple of dishes from there, picked up off the ground. And they got them sitting over here. And when we came back, got on the ship, and with the POWs, we kept picking up the accumulate. This is after September 2nd, of course, when we signed. Prior to that, we were still activated for go up to, before we went to Nagasaki from Okinawa to where they were signing is put planes in the air, different planes, so if anybody started shooting, we would knock them down right away. Everything airborne or the ground. And then when we come back, we went to Nagasaki, had all the planes on top side, and got the POWs loaded up as much as we could, because we had this big, well, that hole was fixed, and so we had the whole hangar deck to put the people on cots and stuff. There's pictures of a load of POWs as well as the sick people that got hurt or weren't feeling good or something else. Got headed back out on after island, going the other way, westbound. And so, or eastbound it would be, and pick up people, more POWs on different islands as we go along. We got San Diego and separated on November 17th. 45. And my nephew wrote him a letter. He was on the Merchant Marines in the Atlantic. And so I told him I was going to my brother's in Detroit when I got off the ship. And so he left me. We both met in Detroit within one day of each other.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in wartime and meeting.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well,
How many POWs do you think were on the ship? Was it like
several hundred?
Several hundred. Wow.
Well, the 4 high stacked.
Huh.
You take a whole hangar deck, and the hangar deck's pretty big.
Hang on just a minute. So this wasn't just a small number of POWs.
Oh,
You
no.
picked up hundreds of
Well,
these
I
guys.
guess we went along, we picked up more all the
Yeah.
time.
Did you get to talk to any of those guys, or
Well, yeah, but I don't remember much.
were they pretty sick, or were they?
Yeah, well, yeah, they weren't very talkative either because they just know they're free now and sort of getting their breath, so to speak.
Yeah, it's probably good for them to be on the ship to decompress from that horror.
Yeah.
Now, when you picked these guys up, were they just walking around, or were they in a
No.
POW camp?
And a camp up back of the hills there, and of course we had troops with us when they got to back that area in case they had any commotion or.
Yeah, trouble with the
Yeah.
Japanese.
Mhm.
Now, and you said they needed a plow to get through Nagasaki to use those roads.
Yeah. Well, you've seen many pictures of Nagasaki. There's roads on them.
Yeah.
Well, we were in there before those roads were plowed.
Yeah.
Because we was plowing the road to get through on where there might be a road. We try to figure out where it is
Yeah.
because the debris was so thick.
Yeah. And with the railroad station, it just blew it completely away. Huh.
That wasn't even a sign of it. Sort of outside this concrete slab in the railroad tracks.
Were you present? There was a thing with Harold Stassen, who actually showed up at one of these POW camps, and he later became a Minnesota governor. Was he involved with anything you were doing? Or?
No, not
Okay.
that I know of.
Yeah. And that must have been kind of satisfying, except you were exposed to radiation. They didn't know about what was going on?
It's where this cancer's from.
Yeah.
They say it's been dormant all the time. And the type of cancer that it reads out is from the atomic fallout.
Really, they can tell that from the
Yeah,
cell damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I get both PTSD and disability.
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about it, but the radiation can actually damage the inside part of the cells.
Mm-hmm.
And then, is that what they're describing, the radioactivity?
Yeah,
It can take a while for that to show up, you know.
that probably is because Dennis saw this little white spot in there, and he says, have a throat specialist check or something like that. Went down here to 305 Portland Avenue where that guy was. And he says, how do you do those? He says, but I'm going to turn you over to University of Minnesota as a top man. So I went there, and he's of Indian descent. And, well, if they take and cut your lower jaw out, put a piece of metal across there, pull up a muscle out of here. I got a scar like this. Yep, and they put it over the top. In 8 hours on a table, at age 88, they took at least 3 CAT scans to see and test my body, see if it can withstand the strain on an operation as such. And it held up. After he told me the whole story, I was going on, and I says to him, and he says he has a team of people. I says to the people, to him, I says, you have your team of people all dressed, any equipment they need, and instantly that I will see you and talk to you after the operation. he'd go, but he couldn't guarantee it. See? I told him I would see him.
Yeah. So did you have this all done
Yeah.
with him?
Yeah. The doctor at the University of Minnesota. Well, 8 hours on the table, and then they put me in CIC there. And when I got the bill, it would stagger you from every side. The first 4 days, I think it was, he had listed at $8,000 a day.
Mm-hmm.
So it must have been awfully tight observation on me.
Yeah.
Just every little beat of the heart, they checking, keep going. And then it...
Did this get covered under your insurances?
Yeah, under Medicare and Tricare for life.
Yeah.
And one of the bills alone, and part of it, there was $270,000.
Yeah, that's expensive.
Yeah.
That would bankrupt if you didn't have coverage.
Yeah. I've been down further than the people in poverty.
Yeah. Well, does it seem to, you're talking, seems to be talking okay. Does it affect your speech, or how does it affect you?
Yeah, it does. Because it's hard to spell, pronounce certain words, and then of course thinking too is kind of losing as I talk. Things come back to me, and then this is all numb. This is all numb.
Yeah.
There's a big lump here, and that's part of pulling that muscle up.
But I assume you're probably pretty happy with getting rid of the cancer.
Well, yeah, because he said, oh, what you got there ain't going to last more than a couple of years. Well, the operation was July of 2011. I've gone on 3 years. So from that standpoint, I had. But I want to go to age 108.
There you go. Why 108? Why not 115 or something?
Well, way back in 1932, when my dad taught me to drive a car, I make it to 108 and still driving, I'll be 100 years driving a car.
There you go.
I don't think there's many going to match that. I'm
I don't
over
think
80
so.
years on that now.
Yeah, I don't think too many people will be competing with you for that.
So, I mean, it's just a mathematical figure.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Well, there were some World War I veterans, and I think a couple of them in Britain made it to like 115. So, you know, why not?
Yeah, well, I took my physical the last time, and 65 different blood tests, and all of them within the range of the age of a 70-year-old.
Wow. Well, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
How old are you today? No.
90 and a half.
90 and a half. Yeah, you're doing good. That's terrific.
Yeah, that's older than a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, this is a book you handed me. It's a war log of the USS Sewanee, and this looks like it was published, I assume, after the war, shortly after the war, and it's got tons of pictures in here.
Yeah.
Did you want to use some of these in the presentation, or what I could do is photograph the photographs and then put them on the. Were there other things you got as we lived it? That was a reunion book, or?
Yeah. Everybody wrote on the different parts of the. Different areas that it happened in the Philippine Islands. Here. See, there's a lot of them. I've never read this book through completely.
And it's got all the stories people wrote up that were on your crew.
Yeah.
Wow, that's nice.
See, here's that picture of one of them. You had big hole in the side.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a pretty good bomb to blow a hole that big in there.
Yeah. So let me make sure I understand this. The first attack on October 25th, was that on the rear?
No, right dead center of the ship.
Okay, and then the one on the 26th, the day after, where was that at?
Well, in the bow.
The bow, okay.
Yeah, where we've been landing airplanes and they were all shacked up front there for the next one to come in, and in between there's a barrier wire.
Yeah. And to orient me, now keep in mind I'm a landlubber, so you know you gotta kind of, and I wasn't born until '54, so you're gonna have to fill me in a little bit. So the superstructure, what do you call that part of the ship? Or this top, this thing? It looks like the plane came in close to this. So is this this is the bow?
Yeah.
So this would be which day? The second day?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is film October 26, 1944, during the Battle of Leyte Gulf. And okay, so that's clear. And then this other plane, it's just it's an American plane flying in the area, right? The one that's level.
I'm not sure if that's American plane. No, American plane was. Well, I don't know where that picture is. There's one that shows a plane landing right here. And these two. This one, and when he hits there, the same one hits in the same spot.
Oh, okay. Well, on this sequence, it looks like this guy's this guy, and then the kamikaze hits. So this is probably the second day.
Yeah,
and
all the second day there.
Are there pictures of the first attack anywhere?
Not as airplanes, but the damages.
Yeah. So that first kamikaze hit. There's pictures of the damage, but not of the plane coming in to the. Okay.
And
well, how many pictures would you like from this book? Do you think for me to
know what looks like a good?
And you can talk a little bit about them, and that'll give people a chance to have a sense of what it was like to be on board the ship.
Yeah. It's like a lot of them talk about their relatives or something being on their father or something. I mean, a lot of people that my father was there, my grandfather was in World War II.
Yeah.
So, I was there.
Yeah, you were. This is first person live eyewitness to the attack. The history.
And another interesting little thing. My oldest sister was born in 1900.
Oh, okay. She was old. She was older. Yeah.
And my dad in 1876, Mom in 1882. They got married in 1899, and my sister was born February 28th in 1900. And they had 3 more children, and then they didn't have any until 23. Dad had a little sperm left over, and I come along.
So you were the late one. Were you the baby, or was there somebody after you?
No, I was the late one by 18 years.
Yeah. So did you get spoiled?
Yeah,
being the youngest one?
I suppose I had to have a hand in it. Are those all black and white pictures on the what's called on the internet?
Yeah, the Naval Archives photos.
Yeah.
So I should put those in, and then maybe get some pictures from here, the thing. And then what is this with the air wing? You got, this is Army Air Forces.
Yeah, well, this year is when I started with Northwest Airlines in '42, and then I went to, that's a picture down to Kansas City. Here we go, I turn right to it. These are scenes we had at Watson Lake that we serviced airplanes up there. And
now what years would these photographs be?
And 42, 43.
Okay.
And
this is before you went into the Navy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this, before I went to Northwest Airlines here, this deals with the sheet metal shop at near Shakopee, just as you come in on the Highway 13, I guess, goes in there, or 101. There anyways where that ancient buildings are being built. They had a sheet metal shop there. And this is part of that. And these other pictures, and this is where we're crossing the Canadian border on a train to go up to Edmonton, Canada. There's a barracks you stayed in Shakopee.
And this is all before the Alcan Highway was built during this war.
They're building it now. I mean,
Oh,
at that time.
Yeah, they were building it at the time.
Mhm.
So how did you get up there? Did you fly part of the way?
No, by train.
Train.
Edmonton, then we flew from there north because there's no train routes up North Edmonton. We were in British Columbia, to Port St. John, Port Nelson, and then Watson Lakes just across the border from BC. And we were refueling fighters going to Russia.
Was Watson Lake in the Yukon or Alaska?
Neither one. They're in in the Yukon here.
Yukon, okay.
Yeah, which is a territory of Canada, not a province.
And you were saying that it got down to like minus 70 plus in that? How cold was the coldest, you think?
At 72 below is the coldest.
Wow, what is that like? I've never been in anything even close to that.
Well, I have a picture here someplace where we're changing spark plugs outside.
Oh, good
At
grief.
60 below zero.
I suppose you had to have your hands covered all the time or they'd
Yeah.
freeze.
These different airplanes that came through the site at the time. There's a C-40, there's a P-38, the C-5, AT-7.
Were the P-38s going to go to Russia for their forces?
Yeah,
Huh.
and there's B-26, B-A-20. They look like a 26. That's an 8 Lockheed 10. They're all different airplanes that was going through. And they want to come in on this valley there. Well, then when I got into the Air Force Reserves, elements that took place, that I flew for 18 years as a flight engineer, and had to go out and averaged out at one a week.
One flight a week as a flight engineer. What kind of planes were they using?
Well, it
then?
started out with the C-46, and then the C.
Here, maybe I'll take a quick look at this one. This is the Army Air Force's Alaskan Wing Air Transport Command.
I had a picture here. I'm trying to. Oh, here, it's sitting right in front of us. Listen, if you can straighten it out.
Oh yeah, that's a nice picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, here, let me just take a look at that. This is what you were flying with the Air National Guard?
No, with the
Air Reserves? Or?
Air Reserve from February 56 till 69.
That's a nice photograph. Who put this out? Was this something?
From the military takes pictures.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from.
What was this plane used for? Transport?
Mm-hmm. Transport and equipment. It's slow and low flying. You can put on a pretty good load and airdrop it, and the engineer at first had control of the load master, the amount of load you're putting on, and work the weight and balance so it would fly.
Yeah.
And I had one time a load, the airplane was acting up, and so I'd go back and rearrange the load so level it off.
Yeah.
To fly.
So you were pretty well trained in what the capacities were and how to
Well, the
monitor the
engineer
engines.
has to know the airplane completely.
Yeah.
Like on the there you had a circuit breaker up overhead, and a circuit breaker popped. You had to know which one it was without looking.
Mm-hmm.
And don't push on in for a fuel pump, because something went bad and caused the fuel pump to pop the circuit breaker. If there was a spark, there would blow a wing off.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty important.
Yeah. It gets,
Avoid.
It gets a little embarrassing.
Yeah, losing a wing.
Yeah. Oh, well, I've been up there when we was over the high mountains, when I lost both engines.
What did you do? Land, I assume?
No.
No?
I got them one started and enough to, and the pilot kept flying it. Co-pilot and myself, we went through checklists, and what had happened is you take off on inboard tanks, so it means the weight on the wings out, and so the wings will stay level. Take that fuel out, it goes like this. It don't fly as good. But anyway, hadn't transferred over from the inboard tanks to the outboard tanks. Going flying along, felt that one happy, bingo, one engine quits, and we go through the checklist, and on the other engine, keep it running, and the fuel gauge shows you're empty, the fuel flow is, we would have it anyways, floppy, and so we turned it the outboard tank, and now I know we got fuel to keep it going. Went back and restarted that engine again now that we just switching tanks, and that run a while, and after we got settled down on our nerves and everything a little bit after we turned the left engine back to the inboard tank and quit in 45 seconds. But it would have been after the other one.
Yeah. Wow.
Things like that.
Yeah, so they just ran out of fuel basically, and yeah.
This planes have landed and crashed because of that.
Yeah.
And then this Malaysia flight, my idea was that they're autopilot when it was Zircon, and they didn't know it. And it steered itself off to the left. Now they're way up north with it 1,000 miles away or something, looking at a spot. About where I thought it was in the first place. They just turned off and didn't know it. And when you pass the perimeter of land, they have a perimeter around every country. And when you pass through that, you better have a valid flight plan and be on course and be altitude, or you get. I've been in two conditions like that. That the fighters came up and, of course, it was daylight, and this one was at night. And I think they shot at some missile from below, or a ground fire shot at it and disabled the electric way in such a way that they couldn't communicate to anybody. And so eventually he ran out of fuel and went down, or was being directed to go somewhere else. But you get at lower altitude, you use up more fuel than you do at higher altitude. And so if they reports from 42 to 12,000, well, they don't take long. They use a lot more fuel, so they couldn't go as far.
So you've been following this Malaysian disappearance pretty closely, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like I say, I was involved in two very similar. We were interrupted.
And did the autopilot go crazy on the ones you were on, or?
No, we just got disorientated some way or other, and navigator wasn't watching close enough. One of them, we lost electric power on the airplane, and we didn't know exactly where the hell we were at, coming from Bermuda to New York. We were guessing at where we were, and when we were in the clouds, but we could keep our altitude up, and that was safe. So, and the power of the engines working all right, and so pretty soon when we come out of the clouds here, we had fighters alongside of us, and then the signal is they'll drop their gear. The signal is you drop your gear and follow us and land.
Did you have to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you were in the Air Reserves then?
Yeah.
You remember what year or when this happened?
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
So it's basically you're surrendering and you're going to follow them and land, and then you'll sort it all out.
Yeah, we were
What happened?
Oh yeah, we were both times we were interrogated real heavy, and then having gone through that survival school for POW, in the survival school I had 3 interrogators on me for, I think they said about 7 to 8 hours, and they couldn't break it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Were these planes that were the fighters, they were Americans or?
Oh yeah, yeah, it was our.
It wasn't Chinese or
No,
Vietnamese
that's
or something?
Yeah, that's right. I think over there I heard them make remarks that Malaysia's not giving all the facts out. That's easy to interpret that aircraft fire or missile shot the plane down. We'll just keep it quiet and forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually they're going to come out with something.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know where that plane is. I understand as of today, and it's been what, a month or something?
Yeah. I mean, for that large an airplane, amount of crew, 239 people all disappeared.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the first time. We had Northwest lost one. The Lake Michigan number was fallen too.
Oh, I didn't know that, really.
Yeah, years back.
Yeah.
That was a DC-4, so it's way back time.
Now, the career you had with Northwest, you were there in '42 up in Watson Lake in the Yukon, and then you had your service during World War II.
Yeah.
And then, did you go back to Northwest right
Yeah.
away? Okay. And then you worked with the machine shop, or what was
I was in the machine shop, and Steve Marks was there. And then in '61, we moved from St. Paul to Minneapolis. And I wanted line service instead of a shop, so I did that, and had to bid 3rd shift and then move up. But on interim, I was on active duty for a year, but I could keep bidding anyway. They had to accept that, and so in '62 in August, when my seniority put me on day shift finally. And I was the youngest one there with over 21 or 22 years seniority on the day shift.
Wow. Yeah, that's those days are over for most people.
Yeah, a lot of them don't even last half that for a job nowadays.
Yeah. So let's see. Then you retired, and you told me you did tax preparation for poor people for the AARP?
Yeah, well, let's see, it was in '60, and 64 and '65, I was tax assessor of Burnsville Township. And I went around and evaluated.
Yeah.
And I was also umpire in Little League Bowl. One says, boy, you're out for punishment.
Well, you've had an active life with all these different things. And then in retirement, you did tax preparation work for poor people. Yeah.
'73, I come off flying status. I went into base ops there. And at base ops, people had to pass through there to get to the line. And Cessna 150 taxied into the ramp. Civilian plane, that's against the law to come on government property. 2 uniformed police officers got out of that plane. They wanted to look over there at that airplane we had for sale. My military, they had high wing. They could use that for their viewing highways. And I told them not go near that C-145. The FBI had confiscated it for drugs. Yeah. And the next thing, here they were inside the boundary line with it. I just called the APs. They took them in and arrested 2 highway patrolmen and
they didn't know the law, and here they are. Yeah, wow.
And so, yeah, and nobody could release them until the next day. the head guy of the highway department had to come out and identify him to get him to come.
Oh man, I bet somebody got fired over that.
I don't know what happened. Well, anyhow, I got a commendation from the base commander that I did the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody, nobody, no matter how the law enforcement, if you're not supposed to be there, you're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And so, and then, like I say, went to a disaster preparedness department where I finished out my service till I got age 60 in 83. In March of 83, I was promoted to Chief Master Sergeant. That's when with 30 years service, I can maintain the rank and retire.
Yeah.
And so I did. And then in 84 or 5, I started doing with the ARP to do income taxes for senior people and with their Social Security and pension for 22 years. And what my biggest gripe is that people would gripe about their high real estate tax, and all they had to do is put in for a refund that brings your tax down. And I said, oh, we didn't get one. I said, you show me your figures. And only 3 people in 20 years did not qualify, and they showed me the figures.
Yeah, so you were saving people money. Did you do, you told me you did something else too in your retirement?
Yeah.
What else did you do?
Defensive driving course for people that take. And then that was 2 things like that. I did that for over 15, 16 years, paralleling with the income taxes. And then
was this a course that older people would take, or is it?
No, we had to go to income tax school. IRS would do it, as well in Minnesota every year.
Yeah. No, I mean the defensive driving part.
Oh yeah.
Was that something for seniors, and they'd get a discount on their insurance or something?
Not anybody over 50 years
Yeah.
old, they get 10% off their if they took this. And then a congressman down in St. Peter area didn't like sitting there 8 hours the second time do it, so he put in a bill that they want to have 4-hour courses after you had your original 8. That's the only, as far as I know, the only state in the union that has that. They have to take 8. But anyway, give that. And then in Missouri, about the turn of the century, that my wife was sick of Parkinson's, and if I was given a course with 35 people sitting there, I get an emergency call, something happened to the wife, I'd have to leave 35 people? No, so I decided to quit.
You retired from that.
So, yeah, so I didn't leave people sitting, But on doing taxes, there were several of us doing taxes, so if I was called in the middle of somebody's tax, I'd just wait a minute, the next preparer could pick up that party and go on.
So are you kind of retired from your retirement careers, or are you still doing that stuff?
No, I'm just got so much to do now that I don't know if I had time to go to work or do anything. Because tonight at 7 o'clock we're going to play bingo, and at 2 o'clock today was a concert downstairs, but don't have to do to something like that. And so, and then every other Tuesday night is Bible study, and then 4:30 on Wednesdays is social hour, and every other, once a month is potluck, and then the first Saturday of the month is That piece of purple paper you see hanging there.
Well, you're an active guy living here.
Yeah.
Well, let's see, so what other documents and things should I be aware of? We've got the pictures here, and then are there other things you want to present to the group next Wednesday? I noticed you got some pictures here, are those?
Yeah.
Let's see, the map too, did I get that back? Is that in here?
That's in that book.
I think we pulled it out. Oh, it's right there. That map is amazing amount of information on it.
Yeah, well, it's every date it was. And then one thing, which very few other sailors don't even have, is that we crossed the international date line, the equator, on March 21st.
Mm-hmm.
What happens
Spring.
at that point?
Yeah, that's spring.
Yeah,
First
you're
day of
changing
spring.
seasons, and you're changing time, you're changing days.
Yeah.
Well,
It'll be kind of complicated.
yeah, as it confuses the navigator.
Yeah.
It's hard to see the dates and stuff on there.
Yeah, I'll just hold this up so I don't know that we're gonna get that, but I'll.
Anyhow. Oh, yeah, back in peace in '58. My firstborn, the boy was born in 1950, and in 8 years he got in the Cub Scouts, so I was Cub Master with them, and then when he got in the Boy Scouts, I was Scoutmaster and merit badge consular, and was scouting up through 1980 when my youngest boy graduated from college at Shadow down here at Faribault.
Mm-hmm.
And he was 4 out of 5 years he was a top student.
Really? Oh, smart kid.
He's got a doctorate degree in 4 different degrees.
Did he inherit the brains from you then?
I don't know where he
How many?
Maybe that's why I haven't got so much left.
How many children and
I had 3
grandchildren?
boys,
Yeah.
and one of them, the oldest one there, he died in '98 from cigarette smoking.
Oh.
And then in 012, the other one, he was 59, he dies in 012, 2 days after Christmas.
Oh,
About a year
that's
and a
terrible.
half going on.
Yeah. So you have one boy left.
Yeah, and he's in the state of Michigan. That's the only family I have.
Did he have children or do you have grandchildren?
No,
Okay.
Only the oldest one did, but I haven't seen anything of the grandson or a granddaughter since
Yeah.
he passed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,